Hey guys, welcome back. This is EKo CBG, and welcome back to a deck profile on Christmas Eve for the Luard deck. And speaking of Christmas, in the Christmas spirit, we're going to have a little chat about imaginary gifts. Now, starting off with grade 3s, we're going to start with a pretty simple setup of 4 copies of Dragon Luard, whose skill reads: act on Vanguard Circle once per turn, retire 2 grade 1 rearguards, draw a card, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, retire it. Now, for the real powerhouse skill, his second skill is an act on Vanguard Circle once per turn. This skill's cost does come down by counterblast 1 for every grade 1 in your drop zone, so think of it as a ritual count from premium. The main skill is counterblast 3, return 2 normal units from your drop zone to your deck, search your deck for up to 1 Drag Driver Luard, write it as stand, and shuffle. At the end of the turn, write this from Soul as rest. So this is a fantastic way to help generate up to 3 potential force markers per turn, which while stacking units really allows you to have those, powerhouse turns and allows you to stack your attack and just be able to hit your opponent very easily later on, forcing them to guard and just being able to dish out free damage. And speaking of Drag Driver Luard, we've got him right here. As a fellow grade 3 with force marker, like I said, the main play would be to go into Dragheart, which will give you 1 force marker, activate his skill, which most of the time would be free, as you get to retire 2 grade 1s for its cost, as well as then riding into Drag Driver, which will give you another force marker, and at the end of the turn you go back into Dragheart to get that third one. So there is actually justification, as you'll see in a moment, to repeatedly ride Dragheart if you have multiples of them in your hand, to constantly gain those triple force marker turns. Now, speaking of skills, Drag Driver skill reads: continuous on Vanguard. During your turn, this unit gets plus 5,000 for each of your grade 1 rearguards, and if you have 2 or more grade 3s in your soul, so this is basically from the second turn onwards, they all get, the original critical all becomes 2, so they all get plus 1 crit. So this is effectively the same as giving force 2 to your entire front row rearguard. And his second skill is, when placed, counterblast 1, and this is where rewriting multiple Dragheart Luards comes into effect. You get to search your deck for the number of grade 1s equal to the number of Luards in your soul, plus 1. And then you call them to rearguard and you shuffle your deck. Now, this effectively means on the first turn, if you only have 1 Dragheart, you call 2 units, because you have the 1 Dragheart in soul, plus 1. If you wrote another one extra and you have 1, 2, and the third one, and the fourth one, so you don't have 3, and then you'll call a 4th unit. So this racks up really quickly, and with Dragheart skill, next turn you can just shuffle them back into the deck. Keep in mind, some skills have a Soul Blast cost, so it's sometimes not unjustifiable to Soul Blast away Drag Drivers in an attempt to reshuffle them back into the deck so you can keep riding them with Dragheart skill. Now, in terms of grade 2s, we have our Drag Wizard Morfessa. This is always a 4 of, it's a staple for the deck, since both on rearguard and in the deck, if your Vanguard has Luard, this gets grade -1. So both on rearguard and in your deck, you're able to call them out when you do get to call out these grade 1 units. So say, for example, with Drag Driver skill, you would be able to get this called out. Its second skill is where really Luard gets all of its flavor, because this is kind of the main card that enables you to multi-attack within this deck. Because at the end of the battle it attacks, if you have 4 or more rearguards with the original grade 1, the main point there is the word original, meaning it doesn't count, you can't run 2 Morfessas. You counterblast 1, you retire it, and you call up to 1 grade 1 from your drop zone to rearguard. Now, we are going to get back to this because this is a key point in a combo we're going to come back to when we discuss our grade 1s. Then, our second choice is 2 copies of Darkness Maiden Maka, whose skill reads: Vanguard or rearguard once per turn, counterblast 1 and call a grade 1 or less card from your hand to rearguard, draw a card, and this unit gets plus 5k until the end of turn. Now, this is primarily going to work together with Sage of Darkness Sharon, who we're going to discuss when we get over to the grade 1 slot. But this is primarily just a way for us to trigger the when called by an effect condition, which will allow us to countercharge. So this is effectively a free 5k buff, as well as calling a card from hand, which also allows you to Soul Blast, which in turn then allows you to potentially fuel your drop zone full of grade 1s, or like I was mentioning earlier, perhaps Soul Blast some Drag Drivers to be able to shovel them back into the deck so you can actually search one after you've ridden them all. And finally, we have the main grade 2 ride of the deck, which is Drag Wizard Liefal, who is both Vanguard and rearguard when placed, counterblast 1, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1, call it to an open rearguard, and then shuffle your deck. Now, this is kind of straightforward because it's basically kind of our main toolbox. since most of this deck's utility comes in the forms of its grade 1s. So like we're talking about, we're going to get to Sharon, but that can also be called with this skill, because unlike in the main, this doesn't specify an attack. This strictly refers to the grade of the unit being called. Speak of the devil, in terms of grade 1s, we've got Black Sage Sharon, whose auto and rearguard when placed by an ability of your card, Soul Blast 1 to countercharge, and gain plus 3k until the end of turn. So as we spoke earlier, this deck is very counterblast heavy, so sometimes you do need that slight bit of countercharge. So for example, if you were able to call this with, say, Liafal, or perhaps even Luard himself, you could potentially be looking at calling it perhaps multiple times to be able to additionally countercharge. So for example, on your first Drag Driver turn, you could theoretically see yourself calling out 2 Sharons, Soul Blasting 2, and being able to immediately countercharge 2, effectively going +1 on your countercharges. Now, unfortunately, this is the main purpose of the card of the deck. It's to either team up with Maka, or with Liafal, or Drag Driver. It's kind of like a quick countercharge for if and when you need it. And finally, we're going to go on to, or next rather, we're going to go on to our little spice for the deck, which is Apocalypse Bat. So when I was talking about multi-attacking earlier with Morfessa, since most of your attacks will be a swing from the Vanguard, Rearguard, and with Morfessa perhaps replace a column and swing for a 4th attack, what Apocalypse Bat allows us to do is, in combination with the card we're going to discuss in a moment, it allows us to potentially swing with our Vanguard, our Rearguard, swing in with a Morfessa. Morfessa would go into an Apocalypse Bat from our drop zone, so this is the 4th attack, but when Apocalypse Bat is placed, he has 2 effects. The first one is on Vanguard, so when placed you can call a card from your soul to Rearguard, so say, treat your starter as a Forerunner, for example, which would allow you, like in the old days, to call from Vanguard to a Rearguard circle. Or, and this is the key skill, when placed, you may call an Apocalypse Bat from your soul to Rearguard. Now you might think, okay, how do we actually originally get that in the soul? We're going to get to that in just a moment. I'll be able to discuss that further. So effectively, you would swing with Morfessa, you'd call it, you'd make a new column, and the second one could either come out behind it to enforce the column, or replace the other Rearguard to enable 2 extra attacks, depending on if you were able to go without swinging. And with the with the level of force markers we're able to get, if you're able to get enough of them, you might very well be able to go in unboosted and still be able to get all the damage you wanted to get. Moving on, when you're talking about how we're going to get that card into Soul, that's when we start talking about our next 2 of being Nightmare Painter. Now, Nightmare Painter's skill reads, when placed on Rearguard, put a grade 1 or less from your drop zone into your soul, and it gets plus 3k until the end of battle. So you're able to, for example, say you have a Drag Driver turn, you're only able to call 2 units, call your Apocalypse Bat, call your Nightmare Painter on top of it, retires, Nightmare Painter's skill triggers, and this goes right into Soul. And that would effectively act the same way and allow you to have that Apocalypse Bat in Soul for next, when you do need it later on with, say, Morfessa, and allows you to call on it on top of it, or call from it for the deck if you need it, or if you need to say, call, with Drag Driver, you'd call it, you'd call on top of it, you immediately retire it, so that you then can call with Morfessa later on top of the one already in your soul. And then we have 2 copies of Sage of Risk Decrams, who's very straightforward. His skill just reads, on Rearguard, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, all of your grade 1s in the front row get Intercept. Given the overwhelming weight on grade 1s in the deck and how often you're not going to have grade 2s on the field, this ends up being a very strong defensive option for the deck. And we're only running 2 of them, so that if we do end up damage checking one of them, we're not completely left to dry. Now, Paramount, we do have one of my favorite cards in the deck, which is Strict Order Knight. Lualis, whose skill reads, Rearguard continues if you have 5 or more grade 1 Rearguards, this unit gets plus 15,000. So you can still be looking at a column of 40,000 without any force markers. And when you're looking at Drag Drive on top of that, you could be looking at a 2 crit, 50,000 power attack of just a single force marker, because most of the time you will have a full board. And because it doesn't say original grade, something like Morfessa does count towards that, which again just makes for absolutely humongous columns and effectively a free 20k boost to your entire Rearguard if you do so need. And finally for the deck, we do have our playset of Abyssal Owl. Now, his skill reads, if you and your opponent's Vanguards have the same grade, this ability's cost may be paid with Soul Blast when placed. When its normal skill is Counterblast 1, draw a card. Now, this skill is absolutely fantastic, since it allows you to plus almost all of the time. It allows you to effectively choose how you want to pay it, because the skill says you may choose to pay with Soul Blast, but that is not a mandatory decision, so it just enables an extra option to play with Soul Blast should you so desire, but you can still play with Counterblast even if you are on the same grade. This is just a consistent plus engine. You can constantly shuffle it in and out of the deck and play it out when you need it to get that extra draw power to your deck, which is why in this specific build I don't run the Branwyn, although it is completely understandable if you wanted to perhaps trim down on the Apocalypse Bat package to try and fit maybe 2 or 3 Branwyns in just to secure that grade 3 ride for when you do need it. In terms of our starter, we're going to be running Drag Prince Route, or Root. When rode upon, draw a card, then if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 1 or greater, put a quick shield ticket into your hand. So it's just our normal little starter with a little bit of that Luard flavor. In terms of our triggers, we have a fairly standard setup here of 4 heal triggers, of our standard 8 criticals, because as you may be very well aware, we do like to deal that damage. We do like sacking people out of the game. And of course, we will be running the 4 PGs. Although keep in mind, due to the natural aggression of the deck, it is completely understandable if some people opt to running, say, either 4 of the critical triggers, Sentinel, or perhaps 2 and 2, or some sort of split like that. But guys, that'll be everything for this deck profile. Thank you very much for watching. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. If you want to catch us live, we do tend to stream on twitch.tv/EKO_CBG. So guys, stay safe, take care. Thanks for watching. Let me know below what you thought of the deck, what you thought of the profile, and how you would like to see us moving forward. But in the meantime, like I was saying, stay safe guys, take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys.